Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty wild, the idea of government run entirely by AI.
It's definitely a fascinating concept to unpack, this idea of algorithms making the big decisions, instead of politicians.
Yeah. So no more elections, no more campaigns, just pure data-driven governance.
In theory, at least, it could make for a much more efficient system, one that's free from human error and bias.
Okay, so let's say we have this AI in charge. What would that actually look like? How would it actually, run things?
Well, imagine instead of having to go through all this political back and forth to pass a budget or implement a policy, the AI could just analyze all the data, figure out the most optimal solution, and boom, put it into action.
Wow, so it'd be like having this super efficient brain managing an entire country, making decisions in real time based on what, like algorithms and predictive models?
Exactly. And because it wouldn't be influenced by emotions or personal opinions, you could theoretically have fair outcomes, especially for, say, marginalized communities that often get the short end of the stick.
Hmm. So no more biased decision-making, no more corruption, just pure logic and data driving everything.
That's the idea, anyway. But, of course, it's not quite as simple as just handing over the keys to the AI and calling it a day.
Right, because AI is still a product of its creators, right?
Yeah.
So if the people who build it have biases, wouldn't those biases just get baked into the system?
Exactly. And that's one of the big challenges with AI, making sure that it's truly objective and unbiased.
So it's not just a matter of AI versus humans, it's more nuanced than that, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's about figuring out how to use this technology responsibly and ethically, and that's a conversation we need to be having right now.
Because the future government might just depend on it.
It very well might.
So if we were to entertain this idea of AI running the show, how would it deal with something like corruption? One of the biggest problems in governments today.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question because corruption really boils down to human greed, right? People wanting to use power for their own personal gain.
Right, like taking bribes, rigging elections, that sort of thing.
Exactly. But an AI wouldn't be tempted by any of that. It wouldn't even understand the concept of greed because it's not programmed for self-preservation or personal gain.
So you're saying an AI government could, at least in theory, be completely incorruptible.
It's possible. But then again, we have to remember who's designing and implementing these systems.
You're saying humans could still find ways to manipulate the AI to rig in their favor, even if it itself isn't susceptible to corruption.
Precisely. And that's why we need robust oversight, transparency in the AI's decision-making process, so we can make sure it's not being misused.
Okay, so it's not a foolproof system. Got it. But let's move on to another big one, efficiency, because let's face it, governments can be notoriously slow and bureaucratic.
Oh, absolutely. With
Right.
all the red tape and committees and political maneuvering, it can take forever to get anything done.
Exactly. But now imagine an AI in charge. It could process information lightning fast,
Yeah.
analyze massive data sets, and make decisions in real time.
Right. It could respond to crises much more effectively, like in the case of a natural disaster, for example. An AI could analyze data on the ground, predict where the disaster is going to hit next, and coordinate relief efforts with incredible speed and precision.
Wow, that would be incredible. But on the flip side, wouldn't we be losing that human touch, that empathy and compassion that's so important, especially in times of crisis?
That's a really important point, and it's something we need to be very careful about. We don't want an AI that's cold and calculating, just spitting out data without any regard for human suffering.
Yeah, because ultimately governments are supposed to serve the people,
Right.
right? And people need to feel heard and understood, not just treated like data points in an algorithm.
Exactly. So it's about finding that balance between efficiency and empathy, between using AI to make smarter decisions while also preserving those core human values that are essential for a just and compassionate society.
So how do we actually achieve that balance? How do we make sure AI enhances our humanity instead of replacing it?
Well, I think it starts with shifting our perspective a little bit. Instead of seeing AI as this replacement for human leaders, why not view it as, say, a powerful tool that they can use?
I see what you're saying. So instead of having the AI make all the decisions, it would be more like uh, giving human leaders better information, more accurate predictions so they can make more informed decisions.
Exactly. Imagine a world where policymakers have access to AI that can, analyze huge amounts of economic data, predict market trends, or even simulate the effects of different policies before they're implemented.
It'd be like having a crystal ball. But instead of just vague predictions, you'd have these data-driven insights like potential scenarios, warnings about unintended consequences, things like that.
Right. And it's not just economics either.
Yeah.
Think about the potential in healthcare or infrastructure or even tackling climate change. With AI, we could start addressing these complex global issues with a level of insight and precision that we've never had before.
It's like with AI, we suddenly have this incredible brain power at our fingertips, helping us to solve some of humanity's biggest problems.
Exactly. But, and this is a big but, we need to remember that AI is just a tool, right? And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad.
So we need to be very careful about how we develop it, how we implement it, and most importantly, I think, what values we embed in it.
Absolutely. We need to have those tough conversations now about ethics, about oversight, about making sure that AI is aligned with our values as a society, not the other way around.
Because ultimately, the future of AI is not predetermined. It's something that we're all creating together right now through the choices we make, the conversations we have, the ethical guidelines we put in place.
It's about shaping a future where AI is a force for good in the world, where it helps us to create a more just, more equitable, and more sustainable future for everyone.
Well said. And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the fascinating world of AI in government. Keep well and keep exploring.